electing to go to the University of Tennessee. Was a 19th round pick of the Mariners yesterday, but he is headed to Knoxville. For the St. Louis Cardinals, there's a great connection between the Redbirds and the University of Tennessee with a couple of pitchers leaving the volunteer program for the St. Louis Cardinals. Let's talk about the draft and some Cardinal topics right now with Josh Jacobs, analyst at FS Redbird Rants, part of the Deal in the Cards podcast. And they did some great work on the podcast during the Major League Baseball draft, including when the Redbirds were able to select Liam Doyle, the left-handed pitcher out of Tennessee, with the 5th overall selection. Josh, it's Darin. Thanks so much for joining us on the Springfield Clinic Orthopedics Hotline. How are you today?
I'm good, Darin. Thanks for having me on, and excited to talk draft and all things Cardinal baseball.
I'll tell you what, when the Angels kind of went off the board at number 2, I felt like it opened up an opportunity for the Cardinals to possibly get Ethan Holliday or Liam Doyle. And, of course, the Rockies ended up taking Holliday, so Doyle fell into the lap of the St. Louis Cardinals. What is the risk? What is the reward for taking this hard-throwing left-handed pitcher out of Tennessee?
Yeah, and you bring up the fact that most analysts did not expect Liam Doyle to be on the board at number 5, let alone that the Cardinals would actually even select him at number 5, which I think we can get into that as we're talking here too. But Liam Doyle does not fit the profile of a typical Cardinals starter, and that's the best thing possible. Liam Doyle is a hard-throwing lefty, hits 100 miles an hour consistently from the left side, led all of Division I baseball in strikeout percentage last year. This dude is a maniac on the mound. If you just want to look up Liam Doyle on YouTube, watch some highlights, you're going to see a guy that pitches with the kind of fiery personality of a Max Scherzer, where if you're in the dugout or if you're on the batter's box on the opposing side, you're probably not sure what he's going to do. He might be throwing at you, he's going to be throwing in on you, and he's a guy that is just a competitive spirit. I love what his manager from Tennessee was talking about over this past year, the transformation he's made in his game. He really got serious about his weight and got into better shape, which allowed him to just pitch deeper into games. For most of the season, he pitched with a blister that was deteriorating his thumb, and he was still throwing 100 miles an hour, never missed a start. This is a guy that has the kind of stuff that could legitimately be an ace or a frontline starter in the game of baseball. And he's a guy that Cardinal fans might not have to wait all that long to see. I highly doubt the Cardinals would be aggressive and put him up in 2025 like some teams do these days. But 2026 is a fairly realistic timeline to see Liam Doyle in a rotation if all things go to plan. And so he was probably the second-ranked player on most teams' boards, and somehow the Cardinals got him at number 5.
Josh, when you think about the Cardinals for so many years when they were making the postseason, they were picking later on in the first round. So talents like this has not been available for them very, very often, if not at all, over the last 20, 25 years. Is this the Cardinals being in position to take a guy like this, or how much of this is an organizational shift in the type of pitchers they want to bring into the organization?
I think it's a little bit of both. When they made the pick last night, Liam Doyle, I think fans initially, they were paying attention, or okay, this might represent a shift, but at the same time, it is number 5 overall. We'll see what happens there. Last year, they were able to get J.J. Weatherholt, who was the projected 1-1 going into the draft, but he fell to number 7. This year, they get Liam Doyle, who's arguably, he's at least the most talented pitcher in the class. Will he be the best? Time will tell. But then you see going down the board and the kind of selections to make later in the draft. They get Liam Doyle's teammate Tanner Franklin out of Tennessee, who, again, is a hard-throwing, hits 102 miles an hour righty for the University of Tennessee, where if you look at his stats at Tennessee, they're not going to blow you away because he's more of a project arm, but it shows you the influence that potentially Chaim Bloom, this new player development staff he brought in over the offseason, are willing to target the types of players that have the upside to be true difference makers in this league, because the Cardinals typically target the softer throwing, low 90s, sinker ball pitchers out of college that they know can be safe picks, one that need back of the rotation starters or bullpen arms. And the Cardinals kind of swung for the fences with the arms they picked in this draft. And to your point, when you pick in the top 5 or top 10, you have access to talent that you don't lower on the board. So go look at the Milwaukee Brewers, who pick the Miz, Jacob Mizorowski, in the second round because they see a guy that's projectable, who has the velocity, that could potentially turn into a top starter, and they take a risk on that, believing they could potentially get a frontline starter one day. draft and develop that guy, when the Cardinals would typically go the other direction, try to find a safe pick, someone that they know will be in St. Louis at some point, probably won't be a true difference maker. But the Chaim Bloom regime, I don't think it's anything I don't think the scouting department's really changed all that much over the last year. I think just with John Mozeliak on his way out, Chaim Bloom and his team coming in, the scouting department, which has always been excellent, has now had the chance to truly go after the guys that they have identified as potential top-end talent. And you saw that in the first round with Liam Doyle. You also saw the type of upside picks they made in the later rounds as well.
Josh Jacobs talking about the Cardinal draft from Dealing the Cards podcast here on the Morning Huddle. Ryan Mitchell, a kid from Tennessee, not a volunteer, but a high school kid, was number 55 overall. And the Redbirds took this young kid. It looks like he's a middle infielder in high school, but he was announced as an outfielder at the draft. Josh, talk about the possible upside of this Mitchell kid.
Yeah, again, the upside's the play here, right? He's a guy that was 50, 55 tools across the board projectable, so pretty above average. But he's an 18-year-old. He was the Gatorade Player of the Year at the University of Tennessee, the state of Tennessee, coming out of high school. Again, he's an athletic shortstop in high school, which if you're picking a high schooler, typically you want the shortstop because that's usually the most athletic and talented player on the field. But the Cardinals did announce him as an outfielder. I'm sure he'll get some time in the dirt as well, but what this tells me is that they think he has the athleticism to potentially play some center field. And obviously you've got Victor Scott in St. Louis right now, but the thing with the MLB draft, outside of a Liam Doyle, is that most of these guys are not going to be in St. Louis for the next 3, 4, maybe even 5 years. And so we love watching Victor Scott right now, but who knows what the Cardinals team will look like in 4 to 5 years. And Ryan Mitchell is a guy that I think the Cardinals would hope that he can be a big league regular one day. But the reason you select him in the second round and teams thought he would potentially go in the late first round is this guy has a frame that he could build into, and that if he continues to develop physically, he's already an athletic speed type guy, but can he add some power to his game as well? He could be a potential 5-tool outfielder moving forward. Again, when you select a guy like that, though, there is a lot of risk involved. But I think a lot of Cardinal fans are just going to be excited about the difference in philosophy, rather going for these safe picks that you know are going to be okay, pretty good big leaguers. They're going for some potential stars. Will it work out? We'll have to wait and see. But Ryan Mitchell's a guy that Cardinal fans might not hear for a couple of years here, but by the time they do, he might be a developing and budding star in the game.
Josh, I've thought out loud, I wonder if the Cardinals organization thought this team would be this good this year, because they have given the young offensive guys the famous runway. They're letting them play, but on the pitching side, Cardinal fans, I know, are very frustrated that Eric Fedde and Miles Michaelis continue to be in this rotation while Michael McGreevy's done everything he can do at AAA Memphis. He is just waiting for his opportunity. At this point, Fedde and Michaelis, you can't trade them for a bag of sunflower seeds. But as you take a look at what may happen over the next couple of weeks, do you think these guys remain in the rotation? It feels like one almost has to because of the innings you have to cover.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that Cardinal fans should get used to seeing at least one of those names in the rotation from here on out. It does seem like Eric Fedde is the odd man out, partially because the Cardinals are holding out hope that they can somehow squeeze some trade value out of him. I remain skeptical of that, but you're likely to see Fedde in the rotation through the end of July. And by the time the trade deadline passes, if he's traded and Michael McGreevy's in the rotation, if he's not, I would expect to see Eric Fedde DFA'd at that point and move to the bullpen. John Mozeliak kind of already airmailed that plan recently. Before Fedde made his last start, they talked about how McGreevy will be a part of this big league club by August. And so it was kind of his way of saying, hey, we're looking to make a trade at some point here. Again, I remain skeptical that will be possible for them. And then Michaelis, he has a no trade clause.
Yep.
You're comparing two not great situations right now, so don't hear me as trying to act like Miles Michaelis is something fans should be really excited about watching right now. But at least the difference between him and Fedde right now is he gives you some innings. And so even if it's not great, he's not killing your bullpen while you're at it too. And so that's why I would say he's probably the man who's going to remain there. And maybe there's an outside chance if they're in the race in September that they would move to a Quinn Matthews or a Tekoa Roby if those guys look good enough. And they are like, okay, we can make it 1 month without the depth here. We'll go for it. But otherwise, I expect to see Miles Michaelis in the rotation through the end of the year, and Eric Fedde will be gone by the end of July.
Josh, is it fair to say that Alec Burleson, and I'm not sure if he was in that runway category at the start of the year because he was kind of the odd guy out, but based on the runway given to the outfielders, is he the only outfielder guaranteed a starting spot next year if he continues to hit the way that he is right now?
It's a really great question because I don't even know if I would say he's guaranteed either. And I think if you're talking about past Cardinal teams, yes, Alec Burleson's the guy that ends up in the outfield because he's producing. I just don't know how Chaim Bloom's going to handle this. I expect, in a way that a lot of fans have been frustrated in recent years, that the Cardinals are going to sit on these log jams. I fully expect Chaim Bloom to go into this offseason to pick and choose who his guys are and to move on from others for some value. And so there's a world where they could say, hey, we really like Alec Burleson and what he produces, but we think we could get a lot in a trade for him and move to some other pieces on a roster. Now, I would expect Alec Burleson to be in the outfield next year, but I think I look at every single one of the options right now, and outside of Brendan Donovan, who I think they want to keep at second base, I don't know if you can say Lars Newbar. I think Victor Scott's here, but is he the for sure starting center fielder? Probably, but I wouldn't even necessarily write that in pen. But yeah, Lars Newbar is a guy I think could definitely be on the move. I don't think Jordan Walker's on the move, but is he a starter next year? Who knows? Yeah. And then it sounds like they're fully prepared for Ivan Herrera to become an outfielder this offseason. And while I know that might be frustrating to some people who think, wow, another catcher moving positions, this dude's bat's way too good to be out of the lineup as much as he is. And so for as much of a revolving door as the Cardinals outfield has been in recent years, Ivan Herrera could be one of those long-term solutions. I think Alec Burleson will be in the other corner. And if that's true, then what do the Cardinals do with Lars Newbar and Jordan Walker? That will be one of the big storylines to watch this offseason.
And I'll follow it up by asking this. I think J.J. Weatherholt might be the best hitter in the organization right now. He's at AAA Memphis. You just talked about Donovan at second. Mason Wynn is your shortstop. Those are J.J. Weatherholt's positions. Is there any chance Chaim Bloom might say, kid, try center field?
I hope so. And it's nothing against Victor Scott. And I actually think he could be the long-term fit out there anyways. But until some of these log jams are cleared up a little bit, the more positions J.J. Weatherholt can play, the better for this organization.
Yes.
And like you said, J.J. Weatherholt is probably the most advanced bat, definitely at the minor league levels. And once he gets here, fans are going to fall in love with his bat really quickly. He's a guy that in the day and age with 3 true outcomes, people are pulling everything, striking out a ton. This dude has elite zone awareness. Rob Cerfolio, their player development guy, talks about his superpower is the ability to never swing at a bad pitch and always maximize the good ones. He has opposite field powers. When you do see him hit the ball hard and far, it's usually to the other side. He's got a great approach at the plate. He's athletic enough as a shortstop that I think you should try him out in center field while he's in AAA. That would give the Cardinals a lot of options moving forward. But I also could see a world where, again, I think they try to exhaust the Nolan Arenado trade options again this offseason. And if he's moved on from, that does open up third base. But, again, ask questions of, well, where's Nolan Gorman play? So once the Cardinals start to figure out who is not a part of the picture, the rest of it becomes a lot clearer. But with all the different names you could throw out right now, it really complicates things. And that's where I think the idea of playing center field for Weatherholt makes even more sense.
John Mozeliak has created some roster construction issues with a lot of people playing the same positions. And I think Chaim Bloom might put a little gasoline on this and burn it down and then build it back up. And we'll see what this team looks like next year. And Josh, where can people find your work? Because as I mentioned earlier, you guys did great work on the draft the last couple of days.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, we've got a podcast called Deal on the Cards. You can find that on YouTube as well as anywhere you find your podcast. We break down the Cardinals twice a week on there. We have guests like Brendan Donovan, Victor Scott, some of the front office. We have media like a Bernie Michaelis, a Derek Gould that you might recognize. It's a fun time. We'd love for you guys to check us out. And then I do written work over at redbirdgrants.com.
Josh, great to talk to you. Thank you so much for the visit this morning. Hopefully we can do this again because I think the next couple of weeks and the offseason might be as intriguing as it has been for Cardinal fans in quite some time. So thanks for the visit this morning, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Of course. Thank you.
That is Josh Jacobs, analyst at FS Redbird Rants. The podcast on YouTube, Deal in the Cards, is terrific as well. That's Deal in the Cards podcast.